Jonathan. So oh, I could have done.
Any insights from reading First Samuel 18 chapters 18 to 20? We're
But that had to
particularly
be
What chapter?
So-
Gretchen?
18
chapter
to 20.
through 20.
Sorry.
In particular, paying attention to the use of heart,
Soul.
soul.
There's a lot of emotion in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Jealousy and love and loyalty and like a
And
soap opera.
being the object of enmity. Ooh, it's so hard to have been loved by a man who then wanted to kill you and whose son is just devoted to you. They're like spiritual brothers, you know. They're just
Jonathan was caught.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
what did
there's
they mean by the soul? We said last week that the heart was supposed to be the center of like the mind and not only emotions, but the intellectual properties of human beings and really the center of who they were. But
right.
would they
So
consider the soul the same?
the soul is all different too. So we're going to look at the word soul tonight, and the word for soul is nephesh.
Nefesh?
Nephesh.
Can you spell that?
Well, in English, like Nephesh.
PH. I want to put an F.
Or you can put an F, because that's not,
Yeah.
it's in English, not in Hebrew.
Right,
No,
I
I'm
understand.
spelling it.
Phonetically.
Yeah. So nephesh is the word for soul. And so thinking back, Camille, how you started it with the conversation about the heart. Toby, you had asked about the brain, and I think I misspoke last session. So the ancient Egyptians had done autopsies and dissections and things, but ancient Mesopotamians did not.
Okay.
And so, but neither ancient Egyptians nor ancient Mesopotamians knew the function of the brain. So regardless of whether they were doing dissections or not, they thought the brain wasn't important. Even ancient Egyptians who were doing autopsies, they would just pull the brain out and discard it whenever they would do embalming, because like
Yeah.
it wasn't important.
Wow.
They
So
didn't really
basically
know.
the heart was everything.
The heart was everything.
Yeah.
The heart was considered the most important organ in these ancient cultures.
Yeah.
So what meaning did soul have for them?
So let's start. Soul. What does soul mean to you when when you think of the word soul? What's all that's encompassed in that?
We use the expression of heart and soul.
It's a
Okay.
good song. It's the thing that you think of it as living on
Yeah.
past your body, you know, and Catholic culture, it's, you know, at least, I don't know what it is here, but yeah, it's the thing. When you die, your soul continues, and it's all tied up with what you
I
do
think our
today.
soul is really who we are. I think the flesh and blood in which we live right now, yeah, it's extremely temporary, but I just lost y'all.
No, we're still here.
We're here.
You just lost us.
Told ya. Told ya.
So yeah, the soul,
Essence
I gotta
of
come
who-
back in. But
Okay.
I think, like Hannah says, it's the part that definitely lives on beyond the point that our flesh and blood is no more.
I agree with you, Camille.
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
I think our soul is the God piece in us.
Yes, Hannah refers to that as the God spark in us.
I would
or
almost
this,
the heart is the God spark if I would be describing it to someone. The soul
Ah.
seems less warm or something. How do we use it in our language? I mean, like as a noun, she's a good soul. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
An old,
Well,
old
what's the
soul?
Yeah, we don't
difference?
really use it super warmly.
What's the
Kind of.
difference between heart and soul? I mean, not the
Not the actual heart.
yeah, not the
Or-
you know.
Well,
Weren't they
in English-
considered at one time? Didn't they consider at one time they were one?
What is the difference in our modern day between heart and soul? Like in our
Heart seems
language.
warmer to me, but you have heart. You don't. Well, she's
Well,
got soul. Oh, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
music.
heart is just an
There's soul in that
She's
music.
full of soul. Yeah, I
Or there's
guess.
heart in that
Yeah,
music, both
yeah,
interchangeable,
a little bit.
but they are.
See,
no,
to me, heart is just an organ.
Oh
yeah.
no, I think she's got heart all the time. Or
See, that
Oh,
to me
I
is
think
part of your soul.
What if they say like, Toby, you have a big heart?
yeah, it's not the.
I think it's colloquialism that was used for making heart into something that really isn't.
Well, same with soul, I guess.
I think our
What
soul
about
is our
your
essence.
soulful?
No, I think a soul is something that you can't touch.
When you say someone is soulful, what does that mean? We're describing a person who is soulful, sad, down.
Emotional to me.
Deep and thoughtful and has a God presence in them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Me, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh.
the first English word soul, the first time it's written in literature that we know of was in the 8th century in Beowulf.
Oh.
And
As
it's
what?
used in Beowulf, the Scandinavian Beowulf, Scandinavian Germanic. What is the
Old
Author.
English.
in Old
I don't
English?
know. We always said Beowulf. But
Beowulf.
yeah.
Mhm.
You're probably right.
Of course, I am.
You work at the library. for
Yeah,
this one,
that's
for
me.
sure.
Was that Norwegian?
It's a Scandinavian Germanic.
I didn't know it
Europe.
was. Are you sure? I thought it was just German.
Well, I think it's more little bit northern, probably. Those tribes, like at that time, is kind of it's not the same line.
There were countries. I mean, Germany
There's-
wasn't there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Germany's not.
Germanic Empire was all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we've got here's from that Old English literature. That was the old one's last word of thoughts of the heart before he chose the pyre, the hot battle flame. From his breast went his soul to seek the judgment of the righteous.
She left them.
Mm.
So this was so we have here in English, in Old English literature, we have the soul being that which is leaving his body to seeking judgment of the righteous. So it's going somewhere in Old English. So, and then we've got in Greek, we've got out of Plato and Aristotle, we've got the concept of psyche, where you've got the immortal soul, and where it's something that's eternal, something that's non-physical, it exists after death. And there's this kind of understanding that is a higher plane. In the material plane is like a second-rate plane. And it's kind of a shadow world of the true world, which would be the non-physical, which is more of a pure world in Greek philosophy. So that's where our English word for soul comes from, with everything that we've shared, but also from those lineages. And so everything we know about that is not what we're talking about in Hebrew.
Good.
So everything that we in English know about the word soul is not what we're talking about at all in the Bible. Not in the Old Testament and not in the New Testament. Because even though the New Testament is using Greek, and they're
Mhm.
using the word psyche usually in the Greek when they're talking about soul, which the word translates soul. Usually they're talking about using the Hebrew concept of soul. And so we have to look at what the Hebrew
Yeah, what
concept
is it?
of soul is. And in the Hebrew concept, there's no concept of an immortal soul before the Babylonian exile.
Oh, yeah.
So pre-Babylonian exile, remember Babylonian exile, they
Hmm.
would have started to encounter more cultures, gotten different cultural influences that would change the understanding of philosophy as well. But before the Babylonian exile, there's no immortal soul.
Hmm.
So everything that we think of soul is not what they're talking about. But this word nephesh, which is usually translated as soul, it's used over 750 times in the Bible. And it's translated as the English word soul less than 10% of the time.
Hmm.
So it has a lot of different meanings. And if this English nephesh, when we talk about a soul in Hebrew, it's not that we have a soul, it's that you are a soul, which is a big difference than how we are using it. So, and it's really key to understanding it is you don't have a soul, you are a soul. Does that make sense, that
Yep.
phrase?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this really came into play after the exile?
So
Well,
the
this is-
concept of an immortal
A
soul
soul.
is only after the
Otherwise, you
Babylonian
just
exile.
before that, you just
So this one is
die.
just you are a soul, that's what,
So the word nephesh is used throughout even
Mm.
after Babylonian exile in Hebrew.
You are
Um,
a soul.
but the concept of what a soul is, how it's being used, changes a little bit after
Oh,
Babylonian
okay.
exile.
Because what do they mean by that? You are a soul.
So
Mhm.
nephesh
Mhm.
is translated into a lot of ways. It's translated as life,
Oh,
soul, lives, the living. It's translated as I. It's translated as heart, themselves, you, people, anyone, and throat, and a lot of other words.
Throat?
In throat, yeah, throat. I'm glad you caught that, because throat is like at its most basic meaning, nephesh means throat. Like right
Oh.
here, your throat.
Wow.
That's its core meaning, is the throat.
Hmm.
So when we talk about, when you read the word soul in the Bible, if it's being translated from nephesh, at its core is this word for throat.
Well,
But
they
I
prob-
suppose it makes sense because what they knew is you would breathe air in
and
Right.
and
You
it
would
would go down it would go kind of through you into your, they think it would go into your body. So it would go through your throat. So that makes sense.
and then
Right.
anything that you would say would come out of your throat. So
Right.
wisdom you have would come out, I guess.
Yeah, but
Right.
we were asked to read chapters 18 through 20 in First Samuel. And the very first verse says, "Now when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul
soul.
of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David." I just don't get that the throat of Jonathan was knit to the throat of David.
It doesn't
were
always,
Close. They were close.
Jonathan loved him with his heart and soul.
the throat is the core meaning, but that's not the only meaning for nephesh.
Okay. Okay. Oh, sure. Life, living, I, heart.
So
Okay.
it's kind of an energetic word.
It has a
Okay.
lot to it. So let's
we
look at
could,
some examples in the Bible,
Okay.
and maybe that'll help ground us. So let's turn to Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. When in doubt, looking for understanding of words, just start back in Genesis, where not only do they give us the creation myths, but they help start defining words for us.
Yeah.
What was it? Genesis what?
Chapter 2, verse 7.
Mine doesn't have the word soul. In the living being.
So I'm going to read it from the NRSV, and then
Okay.
if others want to read it from other translations, because I think we'll have different words. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. What do others have?
The NIV is almost word for word for that.
Okay.
I've got the
I
New
have-
King James and it's almost the same.
Mine's a little different. Mine's so Yahweh fashioned an earth creature out of the clay of the earth and blew into its nostrils the breath of life, and the earth creature became a living being. Same last word.
Hmm,
So the key words we're
which
looking at here,
translation is that?
It's the Inclusive Bible by Priests for Life.
it's a really nice,
I like-
we've been using it sometimes in worship for the scripture readings.
Mhm.
Really good translation.
It is. It just doesn't come in large print.
It does
No.
not.
Tiny print.
The book is big enough, it looks like it should be large print.
Yeah.
Should be 2 volumes.
So the keywords we're looking at here, we've got breath of life and living being,
Mhm.
okay? Both of these words have nephesh in them.
Mm.
So we've got Yahweh, God formed Adam from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, which would be Nishmat Chayim. It's like a deep guttural high yim. And so nishmat is like nephesh, it's related to that word, and it's breath, nishmat, chayim. And then we've got, the man became a living being, which is nephesh, chayim. So we've got breath, we've got living breath going into creating a living nephesh. So in the verbal root for this nephesh is like the act of breathing itself. So this can kind of show us where the throat is connected. So we have, it's the breath of life is being breathed in, and it is literally being breathed into the neck. And so you have that actual imagery happening in Hebrew, that breath is going in through the throat, and it is giving, and it gives life to the throat. It gives light to the nephesh, which is the being. So the very being now has life. So we've got the living, the being is nephesh. So humans are nephesh. The throat, the body, that being is nephesh. But then if we turn back just a little bit, Genesis chapter 1, verse 20. We have, and God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living nephesh, and let birds fly across the earth, across the dome of the sky. You probably have creatures or animals. So the word for creatures here is nephesh. We have that
Hmm.
term used. We have nephesh chayim. So we've got living nephesh again. The waters forth. So we've got living beings, living creatures. Both of these are nephesh. So animals are nephesh. Humans are nephesh. Now let's turn to Numbers, chapter 9, verse 6.
No.
Now there were certain people who were unclean through touching a nephesh, so that they could not keep the Passover on that day. They came before Moses and Aaron on that day. Your Bible might have, now there are certain people who were unclean through touching a corpse. That is a nephesh. is what it is.
Defiled. So the
So it's-
corpse is a nephesh as well?
Corpse is a nephesh as
Hmm.
well.
Well, they certainly saved a lot of time and effort by assigning numerous meanings to one word.
They did though. Probably
Well, but
double-
remember, so they remember in Genesis, they said they tied the word living with nephesh.
Death.
Yeah.
They specified that the nephesh was living. Here, we just have that it's nephesh. It's not a living nephesh. It's just nephesh.
Nefesh, okay. Okay.
Another, so let's go to Job.
To Job.
Job.
Okay.
Job, chapter 11.
Job 11. What verse?
20. We're the very end of chapter 11. But the eyes of the wicked will fail, all way of escape will be lost to them, and their hope is to breathe their last. But the eyes of the wicked will fail, all way of escape will be lost to them, and their hope is to nephesh their last.
Oh, a dying gasp.
So yeah, how will you read yours, Hannah?
Verse 20?
Yeah.
But the eyes of the evildoers will grow dim. Freedom will elude them, and their hope will be a dying gasp.
So that dying gasp, that last final breath, the act of like that dying breath is a nephesh. The
Of
breath,
course it is.
nephesh.
Of course it is. Anything. Nefesh.
So we see here, nephesh also means breath, just the breath itself. We've got
Related to
the
humans.
breath that's being breathed into humans, and the breath, the last breath you take is your nephesh. Your body's your nephesh. Your dead body's your nephesh. Your living
my
body's your
goodness.
nephesh. The
Oh,
animal
nephesh.
that you saw down the street is a nephesh. Okay,
But it's all related to
so let's go to the Psalms
human,
because
something
the
alive.
Psalms never disappoint in
Okay.
adding more complexities
Hmm.
as they add metaphors.
Oh, yeah.
So Psalm 69. 69, let's just at the beginning, verse 1.
Okay.
Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my nephesh.
My neck or throat, maybe.
So, save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. Do others have other translations of how that's? Mine says neck.
Mine says neck.
Mine's neck, yeah.
Okay, so
neck.
here, nephesh is your neck, your throat. So the waters are up to the nephesh. And this psalm is about, it begins with like a metaphor for drowning, this act of drowning. And it's also about, save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my nephesh, which is like saying, I'm at the end of my rope, would be another kind of common phrase that we might use.
Mhm.
Or that I am in over my head.
Right.
In Hebrew, you might just say, it's up to my neck. You wouldn't maybe say I'm in over my head. It's just up to my neck. It's like, this is all my life can handle. My life it's all the way covering my life, my very being.
So if you go down to verse 3, I am weary with my crying, my throat is dry. That's
My
also
neck-
nephesh.
Yep.
My neck is parched. My throat is raw.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you think about it, think about other Psalms. It talks about, I thirst for God.
Mm-hmm.
I thirst for the Lord. There's the Psalm about like the deer, our souls searching and going to the waters, and we drink deeply of the waters.
That's true.
And it uses this word nephesh, that like when we thirst, and why would thirst be so important to the way we understand soul?
Mhm.
Because they're using these metaphors. Nephesh is talking about your neck. Your neck like your throat is dry when you're thirsty. And so they're using this to kind of bring depth to what the word soul means, what the word life, being, you, me, themselves, anyone, animals means nefesh.
Interesting.
They also know that that all stops when you die.
Well, the corpse was still nefesh. So.
Yeah.
So the corpse is still nefesh.
But they
So-
know that there's no more breath because there's nothing coming out.
But nefesh is not just breath.
Okay.
Nefesh
So-
is also body. So it's not, you have to kind of let go of our understanding of how we think of soul, because it's more than our understanding of soul. It encompasses our understanding of soul, but it's also the actual physical body is nefesh.
Mhm.
All that our very being is nefesh. Our anatomy is nefesh. Our heart is part of our
Okay.
nefesh. Our mind's part of our nefesh. All of it. So we've got, you know how heart, lev made it bigger? Nefesh is like bigger yet. So if we go back to the Shema, we have Shema, O Israel, Yahweh is our God, Yahweh is one. And as for you, you shall ahava Yahweh your God with all your lev and with all your nefesh and with all your. So love the Yahweh your God with all your lev and with all your nefesh. We, in English, it says with all your soul, but when you add the word nefesh in, it actually means even more than your soul, with your whole being, everything that you are, the breath of life, your very physical essence, everything that you are, your entirety to love God with your nefesh.
Mhm.
There's one more I wanted to look at in Numbers. So nefesh, like I said, it shows up 750 times.
Wow.
So we're not looking at all of them.
Yeah.
Numbers chapter 11, verse 6. I'm going to go back to 4 just for context. The ramble among them had a strong cravings, and the Israelites also wept again and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we used to eat in Egypt for nothing, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our nefesh is dried up, and there is nothing at all but this manna to look at."
Mhm.
In the NRSV, it translates nefesh as strength.
Mhm.
What do others have?
Buffy, no.
Buffy is all dried up,
We're wasting away.
wasting away.
Just we, so nothing.
Yep,
Yeah,
we.
we are wasting away.
I have appetite.
Lost appetite.
Appetite.
Okay.
Okay, yep. Which that's related with your throat again. So
Yeah.
this use of nefesh, it's
Yeah.
calling in Numbers on numerous understandings of the word nefesh. Your throat is dried up. Your appetite is dried up. Your very strength is dried up. Your very soul is dried up. It's calling on all of those to
Mhm.
emphasize how just upset they are that they only have manna to eat. And bringing that forward.
Hmm.
So there's a lot in nefesh, and I'd encourage you just to keep thinking and pondering it, because it is different than our understanding of the word soul, how
Yeah.
we usually use it.
Definitely.
And it kind of takes a little bit to start wrapping your mind around a little bit. So any initial thoughts or thoughts right now after we've looked at so many of these different examples on nefesh?
Oh, it seems like it's your life force that strength partly from eating and moving and being.
One isn't, that's what gives us life.
Yeah, real generally with all these meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like throat and the people and the, because people have life.
It's what
Yeah.
keeps us alive.
Yeah. And it
You know,
is
you
what
don't-
is itself.
It's life itself.
It's what keeps us alive and is life at the same time.
It's got a lot. It seems like they did this a lot. Do you think a lot of these had so many double meanings or triple meanings that it meant more to the people at the time, probably.
sure,
I
for
mean, we don't even
sure.
know probably
Yeah.
all the double meanings, but
Do you have nefesh when you're in the womb?
in the womb,
Well,
you're in a
so
corpse. Yeah.
like ancient Hebrew understanding of life itself was like life didn't really start until after you were born.
Well, that's what this all sounds like. You know, when they're talking about this is until you take your breath.
Yeah. And they didn't even name children until later.
Too many
Oh.
died,
So many died so young.
I suppose. Yeah. Probably like half of them.
So a corpse could be a nefesh.
Yeah,
What about a
because
dried up bone?
it had
of,
life,
like,
maybe.
You know,
Like Ezekiel.
would that still, I mean, I can see where a corpse could be nefesh because it's recently died. But what about,
I think because it did have life. Like this
But
table.
I don't know if it's nefesh once it's dead.
Maybe. Oh, so I
Well-
would say yes. That's only my opinion, though. I have no idea. Because you got to draw the line somewhere. Like the wall does not have nefesh. I don't think so. Even if you say the
No, not everything is described as nefesh. It's only used 750.
yeah,
It's not
only
like
used.
used
But
like
so far, it's all with people or something to do with people. I suppose it could be animals.
or animals.
Yeah.
Living beings, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
that used to
Mhm.
live.
recently lived?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you never lived, like a dead
Mm.
fetus or something, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's tied with the breath. and
Yeah.
The breath.
I don't think you have nefesh after you die.
Well, there
Well,
was
unless you're a corpse, a new corpse.
oh, that is after you die.
So so let's talk about after death. That's a good, because this is where now things kind of get hung up, because when we think about soul, we think, well, when you die, like there's afterlife and then your soul goes somewhere. But in Hebrew understanding, your body is part of your nefesh. There is no
Oh.
separate between.
Right.
there's no
Even though you
Yeah.
don't have breath.
Yeah.
Even though
True.
you don't have breath.
No, there's no nefesh that leaves. Like this is part of your
It just
nefesh.
stays in.
You want to go outside?
There's nothing to stay in. It is your nefesh.
Okay.
So there's no line. Just like when we talked about the heart in mind, where the mind is in the heart,
It was the same.
in the heart is the mind. There's no line between. They're connected with one another,
Everything is
and
one.
they can't be separated. The nefesh is the same.
So this is
Not
gross.
Go ahead.
This is gross, but so your body decays to nothingness. What
Yeah. From dust
happens
you come,
to the
you
nefesh?
shall return, and I'll put ashes on your forehead.
Huh? What?
No, Ash Wednesday. From dust you come, to dust you shall return. Your body will decay. Your nefesh.
Then what
returns
does
to
it
you.
become? Because it becomes then it becomes everybody's nefesh. Everybody is, you know what I'm saying?
Well, like
Every-
in the story of Genesis, you have the mud creature created from the dirt of the earth and became the nefesh with the breath, the nefesh, the living nefesh being it into a living nefesh.
So in that case, so you wouldn't have it when you died.
So let's
'Cause
talk
you
about
wouldn't be breathing.
So, so the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, does not really speculate what happens after you die.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay,
Doesn't care basically what happens after you die.
okay.
Because what's most important is life in life now. So what
Mhm.
happens after you die is not discussed very often. It is discussed in some places, but not very often. The primary focus is life in life now, not after death. And when it talks about after death, it's not talking about life after death. It's talking about new life. So there's life when it talks about what happens after you die. It's life. It's more like life after life, not life after death.
Okay.
What about your soul? I see his soul went to heaven.
I always picture his little floating thing when I was little. How do you draw a soul
So
in our modern?
yeah, so you've got in Psalm
That's
16.
that's part of it. So it's not gone when you die. I mean,
And I
Right.
hate to leave this conversation.
Well,
I really do.
there's some like the ancient
I don't have it.
Hebrew understanding. So after death, what happens is you have Sheol, okay,
Yeah.
Mm,
which is a shadowy existence.
Depth.
It's not
Mhm.
heaven, not hell. It's
Not purgatory.
it's not purgatory. It just is a place where the dead are. Is the dead
Yeah.
land. And what is it? We don't know. And the Hebrew, they don't try to figure out what it is. It's just like, it's Sheol. It's just where you go. Because that's not the focus. Which is, so it's like Christianity is really attached onto our after death, which is something the Bible hardly ever talks about. And I'm not sure why it is but it's happened over a long period of time that's become as if it's the focus, but it's not the focus in the Bible. So, but we do have like Psalm 16, verse 8. So even though it's not the focus, we're not abandoned by God. Okay. So Psalm 16, verse 8, we have
I can't read tonight. So can somebody read that?
I
What
want
it is?
to find actually in Psalm 16. I'm going to start at 8, but go through to 10.
Okay.
It goes like this: I keep the Lord always before me, because God is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. Therefore, my heart is glad and my soul rejoices. My body also rests secure. For you do not give me up to Sheol, or the grave, or let your faithful one see the pit. So in this, the nephesh is not abandoned to the grave, but the nephesh is our entire being. It's not something that can be separated from us. It's not a soul that floats out or that isn't us. It's tied intimately to our physical being as well. But yet, the Psalm says that God does not abandon the nephesh to the grave. And if we go to Psalm 49,
49?
49. Yep. Trying to find which verse it is. Why should I fear in times of trouble when the iniquity of my persecutors surround me? Those who trust in their wealth and boast of their abundance of their riches. Truly, no ransom avails for one's life. There is no price one can give to God for it. For the ransom of life is costly. It can never suffice. That one should live on forever and it never see the grave. When we look at the wise, they die. Fool and doth perish together and leave their wealth to others. Their graves are their homes forever, their dwelling places to all generations. Though they named lands their own, mortals cannot abide in their pomp. They are like the animals that perish. Such is the fate of the foolhardy, the end of those who were pleased with their lot. Like sheep, they are appointed for Sheol. Death shall be their shepherd. Straight to the grave they descend. In their form shall waste away. Sheol shall be their home. But God will ransom my soul from the power of Sheol, for God will receive me. So we have that God will actually ransom or redeem my nephesh from the grave. For God will receive me. This is not, the me is not another nephesh word. It's me. It's like, it's not nephesh. It's God will redeem my nephesh from the power of Sheol, for God will take me. So this is indicating that, so we've got that our nephesh in some way is redeemed from the grave, that in some way nephesh is actual life itself and physical existence, not just spiritual. So what we have here, it's talking more about like what Jesus talks about of actual like resurrection, that there's
That seems-
actual like
Yeah,
new life.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
life after life. Now, what will that look like? What will that, like, at what time will that occur? How will that happen? There's not really speculation about that.
but I thought that that was the coming of Christ was to do that, and now they're saying that it's already here.
No, it's a promise that's being made
Oh,
in
it's a
Psalm.
promise. So this is just another promise that would be kind of equated to the coming of Christ.
Well, remember the Psalms are songs that are being sung to God. So they're singing, but God will ransom my nephesh from the power of Sheol, for God will take me. So it's their
Okay.
understanding of God's promise for them.
Mhm.
Which,
Yeah.
so
My
when you look-
15 reads, my
ahead.
15 reads, but God will redeem my soul from the power of the grave. And in 8, for the redemption of their souls is costly, and it shall cease forever.
You don't have the part that says, "For he will receive me."
That's the second half of 15.
Yes, yes, for he shall receive me.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So something to turn over and around. What if after death looks different than pop culture has expressed it to look? What if it's not some like heaven and hell type thing, but what if it's actually, as the Hebrew Bible seems to point to, actually life?
Well, what does
That
that mean?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't say.
That's what I'm
I don't know.
saying. Yeah.
So
So
part of
it's like saying, well, you know,
yeah, but part of like studying the Hebrew Bible is also allowing there to be like mysteries that open the mind further, in questions that create more questions that maybe don't have answers, in that you use like your God-given creativity and intellect to try to like go even deeper within that. And that itself is a method of meditating upon the scriptures.
I suppose it's also a matter of time, because if we put reference into time so that Christ comes in the future, but if it's all in one,
Yeah,
Then
If
it
it's all
doesn't
in one-
matter when he comes.
like with Yahweh, when we learned about Yahweh, Yahweh is the one who is and the one who will be.
Right, yeah.
So that's we've got a Bible project video, so which will maybe clear up any things, maybe.
Right.
Or confuse us further. It's okay. It's okay.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen so you can see it.
Okay.
And then we'll read the Shema one more time with all the words we've learned.
For thousands of years, every morning and evening, Jewish people have prayed these well-known words as a way of expressing their devotion to God. They're called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. We're going to look at the word soul. The Hebrew word is nephesh. It occurs over 700 times in the Old Testament. The common English translation of this word is soul, and that's kind of unfortunate. Here's why. The English word soul comes with lots of baggage from ancient Greek philosophy. It's the idea that the soul is a non-physical, immortal essence of a person that's contained or trapped in their body to be released at death. It's a ghost in the machine kind of idea. This notion is totally foreign to the Bible. It's not at all what nephesh means in biblical Hebrew. The most basic meaning of nephesh is throat. Like when the Israelites are wandering in the wilderness, they're hungry and thirsty, and they say to God, "We miss the cucumbers and melons we had in Egypt. Now our nephesh has dried up." Or when Joseph was hauled off into slavery in Egypt, his nephesh was put into iron shackles. But nephesh doesn't only mean throat. Since your whole life and body depend on what comes in and out of your throat, nephesh could also be used to refer to the whole person. Like in Genesis, there were 33 nephesh in Jacob's family, that is, 33 people. In the Torah, a murderer is called a nephesh slayer, and a kidnapper is called a nephesh thief. On the first pages of the Bible, both humans and animals are called a living nephesh, and if the life breath has left a human or animal, the nephesh remains. It's just called a dead nephesh, that is, a corpse. So, in the Bible, people don't have a nephesh, rather, they are a nephesh, a living, breathing, physical being. Now that might surprise you because most people assume the Bible says the soul is what survives apart from the body after death. And while the biblical authors do have a concept of people existing after death, waiting for their resurrection, they rarely talk about it. And when they do, they don't use the word nephesh. So even though nephesh is often translated as soul, the Hebrew word really refers to the whole human as a living physical organism. In fact, this is why biblical people can often use this word to refer to themselves, and it gets translated me or I. Like in Psalm 119, most translations read, "Let me live that I may praise you." In Hebrew, the poet literally says, "Let my nephesh live that it may praise you." By using nephesh, the poet emphasizes that their entire being, their life and their body, offer thanks to God. In the Song of Songs, the young woman constantly refers to her lover as the one my nephesh loves. And of course, love isn't just an intellectual experience, it's an emotion that activates your whole body, your entire nephesh. This helps us understand the brilliance of other biblical poets who could combine multiple meanings of nephesh in one place. Like in Psalm 42, we read, "As the deer pants for the water, so my nephesh pants after you. My nephesh thirsts for the living God." So on a physical level, your throat can be thirsty, like a deer's, but then that physical thirst can become a metaphor for how your whole physical being longs to know and be known by your Creator. Which brings us all the way back to the Shema. To love God with all of your nephesh means to devote your whole physical existence to your Creator, the one who granted us these amazing bodies in the first place. It's about offering your entire being with all of its capabilities and limitations in the effort to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's the Hebrew word for soul.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
That clear it up.
Yeah. Added to it.
So let's look at the Shema one more time tonight, and then we'll close. So it's in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 5. The opening to the Shema. Shema, O Israel, Yahweh is our God, Yahweh is one. And as for you, you shall ahava Yahweh your God with all your love, with all your nephesh, and with all your strength.
Okay.
I'm behind on assignments. What's the assignment for next week? Because I hope to tune in next week.
I don't have any homework for this week to next week.
Okay. Okay.
So other than just to keep thinking about this word nefesh and turn it around, because the word nefesh, we probably could have done like 5 classes on the word nefesh.
Mhm. Oh, easily.
So I think that's enough for our nefesh to ponder for the week.
Okay.
And so our next word that we're going to do next week is strength. And so we'll finish off this opening of the Shema, and then we'll be into Advent. And so we'll be looking at us doing a series on words related to Advent.
Mhm.
Thank
Okay.
you again.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Have a good night.
I hope to
Bye.
make it to church on Sunday. We might be having family Thanksgiving at the farm on Sunday, a week early. So, and the following Sunday I fly. So I might, let's see if we're